Okay, so you know how like in regards to an exorcism or whatever, at least in The Conjuring, I think, and maybe in the movie The Exorcist, you're meant to call out the demon by name, okay, conceptually, right? To sort of, I think, like, purge it or whatever from the vessel. Once you discover its name, that helps to give you power over it, okay? So, hold on. Whether or not you believe in the actual existence of demonic energy spiritually, and again, a lot of like energies that are called demonic are just it's like there's a lot of whatever, but let's just say that, like, for the sake of this, like lower vibrational entities um that attach to people and like feed off of them and sometimes speak through them, okay? So the way that like sometimes this can manifest is when people like uh so if people seem to have like two sides to them, okay, it's almost like it can be weird, like their like kind, like genuine gentle self could be their like a true part of them. It could be like their genuine inner child self, like the good part of them, okay? And then it's like it's weird. It's hard to explain. It's like if someone is like talking and you can tell which part of them is like the regular part of them, and then they will like speak. If someone has like an attachment, it speaks in like double or triple entendre, like through interlaced throughout the conversation. They could be like more subtle or more overt, but it's like they never like they may like even consciously believe that they're saying something, but like that energy is like meaning something else behind it. That's why you have to be careful when you just agree with something that somebody says. Like an example could be somebody's um so say, I don't know, you do something or you say something and you're like, oh, sorry, I was just being silly or whatever, and someone's like, yeah, you are really funny, but they don't mean like, so like partially they could be saying like, oh yeah, you are like humorous, but like the other side of them is saying like funny acting, you know what I mean, like double speak stuff. And some people do it consciously, obviously, but some people don't. I'm telling you, like they have an attachment, especially people who like want to do better but they can't, and that makes them toxic. uh Getting into that, like some people come from families who even like know, you can sort of notice this in patterns of like people sometimes like instinctively know without like consciously knowing to sort of like, okay, say that there's like a pattern of people who pass on their addictions or like problems energetically to whoever they like have a child with. So this could look like, say somebody has an addiction and then they like almost like find somebody else who's vulnerable to that, and then they like give them a kid, and then in giving them a kid they also like pass on that addiction to the other person, and so that person could like go the rest of their life free from their addiction or whatever, but they pass it on to the other person, okay, who ends up getting destroyed and their life is just like messed up because they passed on that demon to them, okay? And demon whatever, because infernal energies aren't all, they're not inherently malicious or bad, but obviously it's like, everybody has a job, so you're gonna like be, are you gonna be mad at someone for doing their job, whatever, it's whatever, but like, so the way that the way that you can call somebody's energy attachment out, sometimes that just means like being very blunt and in some ways mean by calling somebody out, like exactly what they're doing and like what the root of their problem is. That's like the download that I got. So say somebody's being like really toxic and really rude to you, okay, and it's because they have some like dark energy attached to them or negative energy that's like acting through them, and like you don't need to know it's the name of the entity because names are like ephemeral or whatever and don't really exist like time or whatever, so it's more like you need to call the energy out. So that could look like you know saying, hey, like, you need to find a new victim because I know that you just lash out at anybody who is like you consider the closest person to you, um as a scapegoat for your own like anger and hatred that is actually directed towards your parents, but you still care about their validation, so instead you just take it out on everybody around them. So obviously that's a really harsh thing to say, but if it's the truth, it like that's like calling that energy out by name, and it will, it's basically like an ego death for whatever that energetic attachment is. The thing is that people can react a lot of different ways that can arguably sometimes be dangerous, when you call that out. Okay, so like that's why you have to be careful, and it's not for everybody to do, obviously, because sometimes people become like violent and angry and like vicious and obviously very defensive in a very ugly way. So be safe, okay? If you feel called to do something like this can be why, like, when you call out an abuser for on exactly what they're trying to do to you, they get angrier and they like freak out, like their mask drops and they like snap, you know? And that's because you basically like looked at like whatever that dark energy is attached to them, and you're like, I see you, you're not hiding, and like you're not as smart as you think you are. And yeah, they crash out obviously because it's threatening them, because if you keep doing that, then it's almost like the energy is that either that essence like leaves them and they start to like heal and recover and become better, or it like burrows in deeper and they become worse. That's why it's like a touchy thing to do. Arguably sometimes the person is meant to like kind of like consume themselves internally for some reason or another, due to their own like karmic lessons or whatever, because you ultimately, you always have free will. I think that like there's this perception that like uh you can get an energy attachment or whatever. Even like you can't attach a low vibrational energy to somebody who is in a high vibration, like usually, and that's why it's really messed up. That's why like they will do, and that's, it's not like a conspiracy, like ritualized abuse and stuff like that to hurt children, so that it puts them in like a weakened state energetically, a lower vibration, so then it's easier to attach that low vibrational energy to them. Okay, so yeah, I don't know why this message is significant or whatever, but so some of the collective may have this ability to essentially do like you may trigger people by the things that you say. You may be very blunt and speak the truth, like only speak the truth, and that could have triggered people, and you could have been labeled as like mean or rude or whatever. But it's because you are like looking at people's, like, again, the quote unquote demons or whatever, for lack of a better term right now, for the sake of like understanding or whatever. But like you look at their toxicities, whatever like is going wrong with them, and you see why they're doing that, you see the root of it, and you have the ability to call it out. And it's very hard for somebody to like maintain the illusions that they build up for themselves when somebody is like literally sitting in front of them and calling them out exactly what they're afraid to address. So that's basically, you have the ability to see why somebody acts the way that they do. It's usually trauma based, and like they act that way because they're unwilling to address those things, so then they just like, whatever. So like, again, you sort of like break the ego of whatever like toxic attachment is on them, and that again can make them worse or better. But you may notice that like your like spiritual rank is so high or whatever at this time, that you may do that, and you may think that somebody's going to absolutely crash out on you, but then they actually like seem to submit in some way, um almost because they're like, I don't know, uh again, like you like overpower whatever dark energies on the people around you at this time. So you may notice that like you may expect that if you call people out at this time, that they will like freak out on you or something like that, and they may have like a temper tantrum, but it's almost like eventually they will sort of, I keep hearing like they will kneel, they will submit, they will kind of like energetically acknowledge that you were right, and almost like, it's almost like, say you like insult somebody viciously, not with intention, but like maybe they baited you into it, and then you like tell them about themselves, and then after that they like bake you a cake and like buy you a present. It's that sort of like weird energy. So yeah, hopefully that helps somebody.